بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على مولانا رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. My dear brothers and my dear sisters, all praise is due to Allah. We praise Him, we thank Him, we seek His help, seek forgiveness and seek refuge with Him from the evils of ourselves and from the wrong of our doings. Whomever Allah Azza wa Jal guide, he will not be misled, and who goes astray, he will not be guided except if Allah Azza wa Jal wants him to be guided. I bear witness that our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is his last prophet and messenger. Prayers and peace be upon him, his family, his companions, and all those who are following them in the right way until the day of judgment. My dear brothers and my dear sisters, in today's talk, I'm going to cover something that's very basic, yet it's something that can have a huge impact on our lives. Today, we are at the beginning actually of the month of Ramadan, and we have just had 2 or 3 days of it. So actually we can take this opportunity to still change our lives. Ramadan actually has always been an opportunity for people to change their lives, for people really to improve. And that is starting from the very onset, which is the beginning of the revelation of the Quran. As you know, Allah Azza wa Jal has revealed the Quran in the month of Ramadan, specifically in the night of the destiny. Allah Azza wa Jal, He said, شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان. He also says that إنا أنزلناه في ليلة القدر. So we know that actually our entire community and its direction has changed from the moment the Quran was revealed upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Ramadan was always actually an opportunity for change, for changing habits, changing customs, changing the direction of travel of an entire community, which is the community of Islam. Allah Azza wa Jal has given us clearly the purpose of the month of Ramadan. So for some acts of worship, we don't necessarily know what is the wisdom behind that act of worship. For some acts of worship, Allah Azza wa Jal has given us exactly what is the wisdom behind them. For example, if you take the Siyam, Allah Azza wa Jalla, what He said about it is that يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. O you who have believed, it has been prescribed upon you, as it has been prescribed upon those before you, the fasting, so that you might attain the piety. So actually here, Allah Azza wa Jalla, when He talks about the Siyam, He gives us clearly what is the purpose of it. And what is the wisdom behind it? Why are we actually making the fast? And everyone, when you ask him about the wisdom, they will tell you actually it's for attending the piety, which is all very, very good. However, how do we really attend that piety? How do we really reach that level that Allah Azza wa Jal wants us to be in and take really advantage of the month of Ramadan to change our lives? And this is actually exactly the topic of my talk today. So as I started my talk, I mentioned that Ramadan actually was an opportunity for changing the course of an entire community, of our community. And not only that, actually it has changed the course of so many people throughout the history. If you look into the achievements and great achievements that were made possible in our community, they were made possible in Ramadan. A lot of people, when they think about Ramadan, they think about actually it's a period in which we are fasting. It's a period in which we don't have access to food and drink, and that's it. While it's not the case, it should never be Ramadan. We should never be thinking about it in this way. It's not just about an opportunity actually of not having food and drink, but it's also an opportunity actually of taking advantage from that time to really build up yourself, to really change your habits, to really make the changes that are not going to be otherwise possible to make without the change in your food and time and drink times. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he has come actually to change the individual before the community, to make an impact upon each and every one from his community before making an impact actually on the wider and the bigger community. Because the bigger community is nothing else but the sum of each and every one. So the Prophet ﷺ, he came to change and rectify the individual. He came to alter people's habits. He came to alter people's bad morals and character and behavior into really good ones. And therefore, during his call, the Prophet ﷺ, he has focused heavily on ethics. He has focused heavily on manners, emphasizing significant attention to changing souls. And if I just take one hadith, for example, in which the Prophet ﷺ has said, and he has summarized the statement of his sending to this community, what the Prophet ﷺ has said is that, indeed, I was sent to perfect the noble character. So in this hadith, the Prophet ﷺ is clearly stating that one of his missions is actually to change the characters, is actually to change the behaviors. So let us today, for the rest of this talk, just cover this aspect, which is taking advantage of the month of Ramadan as a change period to improve ourselves, to improve our habits, to improve our morals, to improve all of those characters and manners that we for so long want to get rid of, but we are doing so in vain. So this is actually an opportunity. Ramadan is actually an opportunity that comes every year. Your time of food and drink changes. Your time of sleep changes. You are maybe delaying the sleep because of the Taraweeh or everything else that you are engaged in. And maybe you are waking up early so that you eat the suhoor before starting your fasting. And if all of that takes place, it's actually for a reason. And this is actually, so linking it back to what I have started talking about initially, which is attaining the taqwa. So actually all of this, you're changing yourself. And actually not just the change doesn't just take place in yourself. It takes place as well within the entire universe. If you look at when the Prophet ﷺ, he used to break the glad tidings to his companions, when he used to announce, for example, the arrival of the month of Ramadan, what he used to say ﷺ, is the following: Ataakum Ramadan. Here comes to you the month of Ramadan. Shahrul Mubarak. It is a blessed month. فرض الله عز وجل عليكم صيامه. Allah Azza wa Jal has mandated and enjoined you upon you the fasting of it. تفتح فيه أبواب الجنان وتغلق فيه أبواب النيران. The doors of the heavens are open. The doors and the gates of the hellfire are closed. And the shayateen, the devils, are chained up. In it, what he said, لله فيه ليلة خير من ألف شهر من حرم خيرها فقد حرم. In it, the Prophet ﷺ is saying that there is a night that is better than 1,000 months. So in this hadith, I just want to focus actually on the first part of it, which is the huge changes that actually take place in the universe, as mentioned by the Prophet ﷺ. So he said, for example, the doors of the heaven are open. This is a huge change actually to the universe, so that you, my dear brother and my dear sister, make that change within yourself. Huge changes takes place around you as well. As the Prophet ﷺ, he said in the second statement, where he mentioned ﷺ, that in it the doors and the gates of the hellfire are closed. In it the devils are chained up. So you can see that around you a huge amount of change is taking place. Not only that, but as I mentioned at the beginning of my talk, like huge things have taken place in the community, and actually all of this for the purpose of changing inwardly, for the purpose of taking advantage of these huge changes to introduce a change within yourself. Whenever we talk about habits and manners and changing ourselves to the best, there is always something that comes up, which is that actually I want really to make that change. I want really to make that positive impact upon my life. And you see that a lot of brothers, they genuinely and they sincerely want to change. However, they don't find the right opportunity to do it. If you have been waiting for that right opportunity, if you have been waiting for so long for the right time to make the change and to introduce that in your life, then there is no better time than Ramadan to make that change. For the so many reasons that I have mentioned at the beginning of my talk, which are the universe is changing around you. Not only that, but your time for food and drink, your time of eating, your sleep time changes as well. And all of that makes it possible for somebody to introduce a change within his life, for somebody to make a positive impact to his own life. when you look at, for example, people who try to link the change to something else, like you look at people, for example, who try to change at the beginning of every year. Like at the beginning of the year, the first 2-3 days, the first week, they might introduce that change, and then they revert back to their original habits. Why is that? Why do they actually, although they might have a sincere motivation, although they might have a sincere intention, and they have really been determined to make that positive change in their life, yet they don't necessarily actually success in their journey. And they find it actually difficult to introduce whatever positive behavior, whatever change that they want to introduce within their life. And actually, when you look at why is that, it's because, to me, the main reason for that is that they are changing from inwards only. There is nothing actually from within their environment. There is nothing that actually from within their context that makes them actually change, or that makes them be successful in that change. If the environment doesn't change and you are just trying to change yourself, what you will find yourself doing after a certain amount of time is that reverting back to those bad habits, is that reverting back to those bad manners. You try to make a positive change, you try to make a positive impact into your life, yet, for example, the same things take place around you, and as a result, you don't succeed in that endeavor. So that's why actually Ramadan should be our opportunity now. If we want to make a positive impact, these are 30 days in which everything around you is changing. You see an uplift into within the entire community. You see that everybody, for example, eats at the same time, breaks the fast at the same time. You see huge changes that were introduced in your environment. So if you want to make the positive change on your own life, then this is actually the right time for it. This is actually the right time to take advantage of this opportunity to introduce that change. So I'm going to go back into the topic of the manners and just list some of the hadiths in which the Prophet ﷺ, he encouraged the good behaviors and the good manners. The Prophet ﷺ, he indicates in so many hadiths that one of the pillars actually of the Islam, and that one of the pillars of this religion is the good manners. I'm going to cover 2 or 3 of them. And this is just to give you a flavor. This is just to give you an idea about all of these hadiths in which the Prophet ﷺ emphasizing enormously upon the behavior and the good manners. So for example, I'm going to take the first one, which is the Prophet ﷺ, he said, إِنَّ مِنْ خِيَارِكُمْ أَحَاسِنِكُمْ أَخْلَاقًا. Prophet ﷺ in this hadith, what he said is that, verily, among the best of you are the ones with the best character. You can notice something actually straight away in this hadith, which is that the Prophet ﷺ is using the best of you. And the Prophet ﷺ has used actually this expression in only few occasions and in important matters. He has not used it ﷺ throughout his lifetime, except for matters that really are important, that he wants to emphasize upon in his community. For example, if we look into another context that's completely unrelated to behaviors, in which the Prophet ﷺ has mentioned that he mentioned the same expression, which is the best amongst you. He used it actually, and some of you might already know what I'm going to refer to. He used it in the topic of the Quran, of learning and teaching the Quran. The Prophet ﷺ, what he said, خيركم من تعلم القرآن وعلمه. The best of you are the ones who learn the Quran and teach it. So you can hear already from this hadith that I mentioned, which is verily the best amongst you are the ones who have the best character, that this is not something that is easy. That is something that the topic of the manners and the behaviors is something of huge and utmost importance for the Prophet ﷺ, for this entire religion. So in another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned that the most complete of the believers in faith are those with the best character. Prophet ﷺ in this hadith, he said, أَكْمَلُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ إِيمَانًا أَحْسَنُهُمْ خُلُقًا. The most complete of the believers in faith are those with the best character. Another hadith again, Prophet ﷺ, he said, ما شيء أثقل في ميزان العبد يوم القيامة من خلق حسن. There is nothing that is heavier on the balance of the believer, that is heavier on the believer's scale on the day of the hereafter, more than the good character. So you can hear and you can get a sense from these three hadiths that I have just mentioned that the manners and the behaviors are topic of huge importance to the Prophet ﷺ and to this religion entirely. And that's why Allah Azza wa Jalla, He said about His own Prophet, وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ, and you have the best of behaviors. Many people, when we start talking about the topic of the characters and about changing oneself, or about taking the opportunity of Ramadan to make an impact, a positive impact upon your life, a lot of people, what they straight away think is that they think that the character that's imprinted on someone since childhood cannot be changed. And they think that a person cannot alter his habits. I hear some people saying, I've always been this way. I've always behaved in this manner. I've always been a nervous person. I've always shouted at people on the road. That's not actually something that you cannot alter. That's not something actually that you might be thinking that actually I cannot alter this behavior. I cannot change myself. And this is actually a total misconception. Character change, habits change, ethics change, human nature changes, either for the best or for the worst. If you want to become patient, then you have to practice patience. If you want to become generous, then you have to practice that. You have to be generous until you become that person. That might not be something that's imprinted within yourself. However, it is something that can be learned. It is something that can be picked up upon the way if you make the right intention and you try to make the right changes into your life. It is something that can change. Otherwise, the entire da'wah of the Prophet ﷺ, the entire call of the Prophet ﷺ would be vain. Just think about it for a minute. If nobody can change, if the characters that is imprinted into us since childhood is something that is going to be stuck with us for the rest of our lives, then what is the purpose of this hadith from the Prophet ﷺ? Why would the Prophet ﷺ ask us to change something that we cannot change? This religion has not come with something to burden us. It came with everything that we can change within ourselves. It came only with that which is possible to the human being. And even the Prophet ﷺ, he actually mentioned it in the hadith. He said, إِنَّمَا الْعِلْمُ بِالتَّعَلُّمِ وَإِنَّمَا الْحِلْمُ بِالتَّحَلُّمِ. The Prophet ﷺ, what he said, for example, about being patient, about forcing ourselves into learning this good characteristic. And actually, by the way, it is a good characteristic. And some people, they genuinely have it. The Prophet ﷺ, when he looked at one of the companions, he said, إِنَّ فِيكَ لَخَصْلَتَانِ يَحِبُّهُمَ اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ الْحِلْمُ وَالْأَنَاةُ. You have two characteristics, you have two manners that are beloved to Allah Azza wa Jal, which are al-hilm, which are the patience, and ana. So these are some of the characteristics that are beloved to the Prophet ﷺ. And as I mentioned, the Prophet ﷺ, he said actually that it can change. Prophet ﷺ, what he said is that he mentioned that إِنَّمَا الْعِلْمُ بِالتَّعَلُّمِ وَإِنَّمَا الْحِلْمُ بِالتَّحَلُّمِ. Knowledge comes by learning, and patience comes by practicing it. And the Prophet ﷺ, listen to this second part of the hadith. Whoever seeks goodness will be given it. Whoever seeks goodness will be given it. If you try to change and genuinely try to change, then you are going to be at some point successful in it. No matter how difficult it might be along the way, no matter how the change will take you, and no matter how much effort is going to take you along the way, but the result is going to be there at some point. This is actually the guarantee from the Prophet ﷺ. This is not my guarantee. إِنَّمَا الْعِلْمُ بِالتَّعَلُّمِ. Knowledge comes by learning it, and patience comes by practicing it. And the Prophet ﷺ, what he said afterwards is that, and whoever seeks goodness will be given it. and whoever avoids evil will be protected from it. What I might I'm here I might some brothers might just mention is that actually I'm trying but I just keep failing. And then again, this is why I have chosen to talk during this month of Ramadan about the topic of the behavior and change and taking the opportunity of Ramadan to change. So take genuinely the opportunity of Ramadan to make a change in your life. If you have always driven in a manner that's maybe aggressive, then this is the right time really to look back into that and to introduce some change in your life. But you have to be wanting that change, and you have to be making the effort for that change to take place. Changing characters and habits may require effort. It's not easy for everybody. A lot of people, they try to do it and they fail along the way, and then they just revert back to their normal behavior and to their original characters. It is not something easy to achieve. And yes, I grant you that. Yes, I accept that from you. However, you will be rewarded for it. Think about all of those huge rewards that you are going to get from the fact that you are introducing a positive change into your life, and that you are battling against your nafs in the way of improving for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal. Every person has flaws. Every person has shortcomings that they must strive to rectify. Every and each one of us, we all have our issues and we all have our flaws, our shortcomings, but we must strive to correct ourselves in our journey to Allah Azza wa Jal. So, going back to taking the month of Ramadan as a month of change to introduce that positive change in our lives. As I mentioned at the beginning, the Quran has changed the community from a nation of shepherds into a nation that was guiding the rest of the communities. In the month of Ramadan, the Prophet ﷺ was sent, dispelling the darkness and the ignorance, dispelling all of this, dispelling the falsehood, and changing people's character within 25 years of life into people that could totally control themselves. If they have changed, if people like Umar, who were so strong, who maybe have that behavior of being quick in responding, has controlled himself, then you can control yourself, my dear brother. Prophet ﷺ has worked a lot on this with his companions, and we need to work on it and take the advantage of the month of Ramadan as an opportunity to make that change in our lives. Wallahi, it is upon us. It is really incumbent upon the believer to seize this opportunity of Ramadan, to hold oneself accountable, to consider our lives in general, and especially how we interact with Muslims and non-Muslims. A lot of people, they think that the religion is only about the ibadah, about actually coming at night in the Taraweeh and making that long prayer and making the khushu', listening to the Imam very carefully, and actually they forget that along the way there are so many other aspects that they might be ignoring. And one of these aspects is really the behavior. It can either make you successful in the hereafter, or it can make you totally fail. In the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, in which he mentioned that أتدرون من المفلس? The Prophet ﷺ, he was asking one day his companions, do you know who is the bankrupt? قلنا, the companions, they responded, المفلس من لا درهم له ولا متاع. The bankrupt is the one who has no money and he has no furniture, no house, no material things of this worldly life. The Prophet ﷺ, he wanted to divert their attention to something that is completely different, which is, Prophet ﷺ, what he said, المفلس من يأتي يوم القيامة بجبال من حسنات. And just think about yourself for a minute. coming in the day of the hereafter, coming with the mountains and mountains of hasanat, and maybe all of them will be taken off from you. Be taken off because of all of those people who you on whom you have shouted on the road, those people that you might have not behaved well with. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, Al-Muflis man ya'ti yawm al-qiyamah bijibal min hasanat, mountains and mountains of hasanat. Ya'ti, and he has done this to this, he has done this other thing to this other man, and he has done this to this other man. And they will all take from his hasanat until he has nothing left. So imagine before your eyes those mountains and mountains. May Allah preserve you and myself from that. Imagine before your eyes, imagine being in that situation. Before your eyes you see mountains and mountains of hasanat, yet you see them all being taken off from you. You see all of that hard work, all of that fasting, making long days of fasting. And we know here, for example, in the UK, in the summer, Ramadan can be very, very long. And it can be very, very difficult actually towards the end of the day. Yet, you are making the fast. Yet, you are submitting totally to Allah Azza wa Jal, and you are exactly breaking the fast when He tells you to break the fast. Not before, not a single moment before. If you are doing all of that and you are gaining along the way all of this reward from Allah Azza wa Jal, imagine this reward now coming in the day of the hereafter and manifesting itself as mountains of hasanat, and yet it starts being taken from you one by one. Prophet he said, يأتي فيعطى هذا من حسناته وهذا من حسناته. And these people are going to take from their hasanat, and these other are going to take from this hasanat because of all of that which he has caused to them. And then imagine, my dear brother, my dear sister, may Allah Azza wa Jal preserve you and myself from it. Imagine there is nothing left actually. Imagine that is actually your last hasana. What the Prophet ﷺ has said is that they are going to be taken from their sins and be put in his scale and then be thrown in hellfire. So this is not something to be taken lightly, my dear brothers. This is not something to be completely relaxed about and to just completely ignore and to focus on your prayer. Nobody is telling you that the prayer is not important. Nobody is telling you that your Tawih prayer that you are going to make tonight is not important. Nobody is telling you that what you are going to be doing throughout the day of adhkar, reading the Quran, is not important. That is not what we are saying here. What we are saying is that you might be actually ignoring things or not giving the right importance to things that might actually make you fail in the hereafter. And I want your success, and I want you really to be amongst those who are going to make it to the paradise. نسأل الله عز وجل أن يجعلنا وإياكم من أهل الجنة. نسأل الله عز وجل أن يجعلنا وإياكم من عتقائه من النار ومن المقبولين في هذا الشهر. But just think about it. It could be well that, my dear brother, my dear sister, you are ignoring just this one aspect of your life, and this is the aspect that's going to probably not make you successful in that day. I hate even saying that we'll throw you in hellfire, but the reality is that the Prophet ﷺ, as he mentioned, فَيُعْطَى هَذَا مِنْ حَسَنَاتِهِ وَهَذَا مِنْ حَسَنَاتِهِ فَإِنْ نَفِذَتْ حَسَنَاتُهُ أُخِذَ مِنْ سَيِّئَاتِهِمْ فَطُرِحَتْ عَلَيْهِ ثُمَّ طُرِحَ فِي النَّارِ. So this discerning believer who changes his meal times, he changes the time of his food and drink, the time when he's going to start eating, and the time when he's going to break his fast, and he's doing all of that for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal. The discerning believer who is making this huge effort to change his eating and drinking time, he should also make the change, make a more important change to his life. He said that the purpose of Ramadan actually is not that you refrain, and it's not that you refrain solely from food and drink. The Prophet he mentioned it in one of the hadith that من لم يدع قول الزور والعمل به فليس لله حاجة في أن يدع طعامه وشرابه. The Prophet he said that whoever doesn't give up false speech and acting upon it, Allah Azza wa Jal has no need that He gives up His food and drink. So Ramadan is not about actually giving up the food and drink as such, although this is part of the equation, although this is part of what we need to do to attend the piety. We need to refrain ourselves, but by refraining ourselves, we need to teach it and to train it on something which is more important than just refraining ourselves, which is making that huge impact throughout our life, making that huge impact to all of the other aspects of our life. I want you, my dear brothers and my dear sisters, to be successful in this month. I want you to live a month of Ramadan that's actually different from any other month of Ramadan that you have lived before. And you can only do that if you are definitely decided to change yourself. If you are definitely decided to make a positive impact onto yourself. As some might say, if you change nothing, nothing will change as a result. If you don't try, if you just live this month of Ramadan like you have lived all of the month of Ramadan that you have lived before, then nothing is going to change. Don't expect that this Ramadan is going to be any different if you don't try to make this month of Ramadan different yourself. It's that deliberate action of making a change and an impact into our lives that will result in the impact being positive. So, going back, my dear brothers and my dear sisters, to our original topic. So, you have understood that actually the month of Ramadan is a month of opportunity, and it's a month of opportunity actually throughout on different scales, on different topics, not just actually on the topic of changing ourselves. But I wanted to start actually the first of my talks on this radio in this month of Ramadan with it, just purely because it is something, my dear brothers and my dear sisters, that the Prophet ﷺ has emphasized upon enormously. And we need to give the topic the right importance. A lot of people actually are going to be tonight preparing for the Taraweeh. They're going to be sitting maybe in the first lines. They're maybe going to spend a huge amount of concentration on the recitation that's going to take place. So may Allah Azza wa Jalla reward you for all of that. However, what you need to know as well is that this is just part of the equation. This is not everything actually. The religion is not just about the prayer and the fasting. And as I mentioned that in some other occasions, nobody is telling you that the prayer and the fasting is not important. What we are telling you is that there might be something that you are overlooking that is as important as that. If we look into Surah Al-Fatiha, which is actually something that we recite 17 times a day, and we recite it in each rak'ah for a purpose. And the purpose is nothing else but it contains all of the major themes that this religion has come with. It contains all of the advice. It summarizes all of the advice that this religion has come with in those 7 verses of Surah Al-Fatiha. So, Surah Al-Fatiha, when you look into it, it's actually split into 3 parts. And this is how our religion is split. I always think of Islam as 3 pillars. The first pillar is knowing Allah Azza wa Jal, knowing your creed, knowing your aqeedah, knowing who is your Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, believing in all of that, believing that there is a day in which people are going to be gathered for hisab, to give back the accounts, to be judged by our Lord. And this is what is mentioned clearly in the first 3 verses of Surah Al-Fatiha, which are Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. So imagine we start our Quran with this, which is our creed in Allah Azza wa Jal. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. The merciful, the most merciful. Maliki and Maliki Yawmiddin, depending on the recitation that you are using. Maliki Yawmiddin, which means the reign of the day of the hereafter, the king of that day. So Allah Azza wa Jal, He's starting His first surah of the Quran and the most important surah of the Quran, Sab' al-Mathani, by explaining to us these, by explaining to us His attributes, by telling us our aqidah in Him, by telling us that there is a day of the hereafter. And this is actually one of the pillars of the religion. The second pillar is, now if you have known your Lord, now if you have known who Allah is, now if you have known that there is a day in which people are going to be gathered in order to be judged, then work for it. Then work for that day. And that's why we straight away recite إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. It's only you who we worship, and it's only you who we ask for assistance. And this is actually the second pillar. So this religion is about our aqidah, our ibadah, our worship, aqidah, the creed, worship, ibadah, and then the third thing is what Allah Azza wa Jalla is going to mention straight after that, which is اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Some people might be thinking right now, how does this link actually to the behavior? How does this link to the good manners? How does this link to all of the hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ, he mentions, I have been sent to perfect the good behavior, and all of these hadiths that I have been mentioning throughout this talk? And actually, the answer is that when Allah Azza wa Jalla, He mentions اهدنا الصراط المستقيم, guide us to the right path, to the straight path, the path of those who you have been pleased with, not those who have evoked your anger, and not those who have gone astray. This path actually is the path of the people who Allah Azza wa Jal has been pleased with. And Allah Azza wa Jal is only pleased with good behaviors, with good manners. So under this actually third pillar, you can enter and you can put and include everything actually that is that is related to actually our interactions in this worldly life. Like when you are doing a sale and you are genuine in that sale, you're not trying to cheat your brother and your sister, or you're not trying to cheat even a non-Muslim person. It doesn't matter. You're actually doing that which pleases Allah Azza wa Jal. You're actually doing that which have been done by the prophets and the believers that Allah Azza wa Jal has been pleased with before you. So Allah Azza wa Jal, He said, أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ هَدَى اللَّهُ فَبِهُدَاهُ مُقْتَدِهِ. Those are the people who Allah Azza wa Jal has been pleased with. Allah Azza wa Jal has guided. فَبِهُدَاهُ مُقْتَدِهِ. Then follow their guidance. And this is actually a call to the Prophet ﷺ, yet he's the one who has the best behavior. He's the one who has the best of moral characters. So, under this third pillar, my dear brothers and my dear sisters, going back into this verse of Surah Al-Fatiha, which is the last part of Surah Al-Fatiha, which is اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. You can enter all of those interactions that we have with Muslims and non-Muslims. You can enter all of those behaviors that we have in our families, with our children, with our parents. Like when Allah Azza wa Jalla, He says, بِرُّ الْوَالِدَيْنِ وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. Allah Azza wa Jalla has decreed that you worship only Him and that you are good to your parents. You can enter anything that actually has some trait of character, something to do with a good behavior with somebody, be it a Muslim or non-Muslim, be it your parents, your children, be it your family members, be it the people who are around you, be it the people in the masjid. As I said, it doesn't matter much how much, my dear brothers and my dear sisters, you look from outside if you are not making a change from within yourself, from the inside. Allah Azza wa Jal, as the Prophet ﷺ, he said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَنظُرُ إِلَى صُوَرِكُمْ وَلَا إِلَى أَجْسَامِكُمْ وَلَكِنْ يَنظُرُ إِلَى قُلُوبِكُمْ وَأَعْمَالِكُمْ. Allah Azza wa Jal, He doesn't look into your shapes, your forms. And I'm sure that even tonight, from within some of those who are going to make it for Taraweeh, They're going to be spending a huge amount of time working on their appearance, working on how they're going to look like. I see that sister making a huge amount of time actually wearing the hijab properly and making all of that for the sake of pleasing Allah Azza wa Jal. But don't forget along the way that there is something which is more important than actually the appearance, which is that inner self, which is that person that's actually hiding behind all of that appearance. And that's what Allah Azza wa Jal exactly looks at. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, "Inna Allah la yanzuru ila suwarikum wala ila ajsamikum." Allah Azza wa Jal doesn't look into your shapes, your bodies, ولكن ينظر إلى قلوبكم وأعمالكم. He only looks at your hearts and what is in them. He only looks at your behavior. ولكن إلى قلوبكم وإلى أعمالكم. And he only looks at your hearts, and he only looks at your deeds. So, my dear brothers and my dear sisters, I hope you have understood the topic of today, which is about the making a positive impact into our behaviors and taking the advantage of the month of Ramadan to introduce that impact and that change into our lives. Again, just closing with what I have started with, which is people are really taking other opportunities actually to make the change. Like they take the beginning of the year as a mark to introduce some changes in their lives. And then after days or after weeks from that, you see them reverting back to their normal selves, to their normal behaviors. If you truly want to take an opportunity that will make an impact into your life, then Ramadan is your opportunity. You're changing so many things around you, and you can also work on your inner self, which is what Allah Azza wa Jal, what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam want you to be focusing at more than anything else. Again, the appearance is not, it doesn't mean that the appearance is not important. Yes, we need to look like Muslims who respect themselves. We need to be taking care of ourselves. Allah Azza wa Jal, He mentioned it in the Quran. Ya bani Adam, khudu zinakum inda kulli masjid. O son of Adam, beautify yourselves on the doorstep of every masjid. But this doesn't mean actually that you just work on that one. You have to work actually on other aspects of your life that are more important than just your appearance. And those other aspects are your heart, your behavior, and the things that you do in secrecy. The things that you do when nobody knows about you. So I hope, my dear brothers and sisters, you have benefited from today's talk. May Allah Azza wa Jal accept from us all our deeds during this month of Ramadan. May Allah Azza wa Jal make us successful in changing ourselves to the best. May Allah Azza wa Jal grant us the Jannah during this month of Ramadan, and may Allah Azza wa Jal help protect. May Allah Azza wa Jal protect us from the hellfire. From the hellfire, inshallah ta'ala. So for the remaining minutes of this talk, I'm just going to make a small dua, inshallah ta'ala, before breaking the iftar. I know that a lot of people, they like to do the dua, which is one of the periods in which the dua is actually accepted. So I'm going to make, inshallah ta'ala, a small dua in Arabic. So for those who understand Arabic, inshallah ta'ala, will just benefit from it. And for those who don't understand it, the dua is centered around asking Allah Azza wa Jal for forgiveness, asking Allah Azza wa Jal that He makes us successful in this month of Ramadan, and that He grants us a lot of blessings during this month. So, Allahumma inna nasta'inuka wa nastaghfiruka wa nastahdik wa nu'minu bika wa natawakkalu alayk wa nuthni alayka al-khayra kullah nashkuruka wa la nakfuruk wa nakhla'u wa natruku man yafjuruk. Allahumma iyyaka na'bud wa laka nusalli wa nasjud wa ilayka nas'a wa nahfid. اللهم إنا نرجو رحمتك ونخشى عذابك إن عذابك الجد بالكفار ملحق. اللهم إنا نسألك الجنة وما قرب إليها من قول وعمل. اللهم إنا نسألك الجنة وما قرب إليها من قول وعمل. اللهم إنا نعوذ بك من النار وما قرب إليها من قول وعمل. اللهم إنا نسألك الجنة مع الأبرار برحمتك يا عزيز يا غفار. اللهم ربنا إننا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. ربنا إننا سمعنا مناديا ينادي للإيمان أن آمنوا بربكم فآمنا. ربنا فاغفر لنا ذنوبنا وكفر عنا سيئاتنا وتوفنا مع الأبرار. ربنا وآتنا ما وعدتنا على رسولك ولا تخزنا يوم القيامة إنك لا تخلف الميعاد. اللهم يا رب العالمين أصلح أحوال المسلمين في كل مكان. اللهم أصلح شباب المسلمين. اللهم أصلح شباب المسلمين يا رب العالمين يا أكرم الأكرمين. اللهم علمنا علما ينفعنا. اللهم يا رب العالمين علمنا علما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما وعملا متقبلا يا رب العالمين. اللهم اجعل القرآن العظيم ربيع قلوبنا ونور صدورنا وذهاب همومنا وغمومنا وسائقنا وذليلنا إلى جناتك جنات النعيم. اللهم ذكرنا منه ما نسينا. اللهم علمنا منه ما جهلنا. اللهم ارزقنا تلاوته آناء الليل وأطراف النهار على الوجه الذي يرضيك عنا. اللهم يا رب العالمين إنا نسألك يقينا صادقا. اللهم ما قسمت في هذه الليلة المباركة من صحة وسلامة وعافية وسعة رزق فاجعل لنا منه أوفر الحظ والنصيب. اللهم فاجعل لنا منه أوفر الحظ والنصيب. اللهم فاجعل لنا منه أوفر الحظ والنصيب. اللهم يا حنان يا منان يا من برحمته نستغيث فأصلح لنا شأننا كله ولا تكلنا إلى أنفسنا طرفة عين ولا أقل من ذلك. اللهم إنا نعوذ بك من مضلات الفتن ما ظهر منها وما بطن. اللهم يا رب العالمين بلغنا ليلة القدر. اللهم كما بلغتنا رمضان في صحة وعافية فبلغنا ليلة القدر. اللهم اجعلنا يا رب العالمين فيها من عتقائك من النار ومن المقبولين. اللهم اعتق رقابنا من النار في هذا الشهر. اللهم اعتق رقابنا ورقاب آبائنا وأمهاتنا من النار ورقاب من أحببناهم فيك ومن أحبونا فيك من النار. اللهم يا رب العالمين يا أكرم الأكرمين اعتق رقابنا ورقاب والدينا من النار. اللهم إنا نسألك الجنة ونعيمها ونعوذ بك من النار وما قرب إليها من قول وعمل. اللهم يا رب العالمين يا أكرم الأكرمين اللهم أصلح لنا شأننا كله ولا تكلنا إلى أنفسنا طرفة عين ولا أقل من ذلك. على الله توكلنا ربنا لا تجعلنا فتنة للقوم الظالمين ونجنا برحمتك من القوم الكافرين. اللهم يا رب العالمين ارزقنا علما وعملا متقبلا. اللهم إنا نعوذ بك من علم لا ينفع ومن قلب لا يخشع ومن دعوة لا يستجاب لها. اللهم إنا نسألك الإخلاص في القول والعمل. اللهم طهر أعمالنا من النفاق وألسنتنا من الكذب وأعيننا من الخيانة فإنك تعلم خائنة الأعين وما تخفي الصدور. اللهم إنا نعوذ بك من علم يكون علينا وبالا. اللهم يا رب العالمين ثبت أقدامنا. اللهم يا رب العالمين أقم لنا مبادئنا. اللهم يا رب العالمين احفظنا واحفظ والدينا واحفظ مشايخنا واحفظ من لهم الفضل علينا في هذا الشهر يا رب العالمين يا أكرم الأكرمين. اللهم أبرم لهذه الأمة أمر رشد يعز فيه أهل طاعتك ويذل فيه أهل معصيتك ويؤمر فيه بالمعروف وينهى فيه عن المنكر. اللهم إنا نسألك يا حنان يا منان بموجبات رحمتك وبعزائم مغفرتك أن تجعل القرآن العظيم ربيع قلوبنا ونور صدورنا وذهاب همومنا وغمومنا وسائقنا ودليلنا إلى جناتك جنات النعيم. اللهم ذكرنا منه ما نسينا وعلمنا منه ما جهلنا وارزقنا تلاوته آناء الليل وأطراف النهار على الوجه الذي يرضيك عنا. اللهم يا حنان يا منان يا من برحمته نستغيث فأصلح لنا شأننا كله. اللهم أصلح لنا شأننا كله. اللهم أصلح لنا شأننا كله يا رب العالمين يا أكرم الأكرمين. اللهم أصلح لنا شأننا كله يا رب العالمين يا أكرم الأكرمين. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. جزاكم الله خيرا for listening, my dear brothers and my sisters. I give you inshallah ta'ala appointment next week if Allah Azza wa Jal allows us to live longer until next Wednesday inshallah ta'ala. جزاكم الله خيرا for listening. جزاكم الله خيرا for everything that you are going to do during this month of Ramadan. So try inshallah ta'ala to make that positive impact within yourselves and within your lives. And I ask Allah Azza wa Jal that He makes us really successful in this month. This is a huge and blessed month, and we need really to take advantage from it, inshallah ta'ala. Thank you so much, my dear brothers and my dear sisters, for listening carefully. I hope really this talk is going to make an impact upon our lives, and I genuinely hope that what we are going to make, inshallah ta'ala, that we are going to make really out of this talk something that is important. As you know, there are only a few minutes left before the Maghrib, inshallah ta'ala. So think about and think through what I have been mentioning actually during my talk, all of these hadiths that really encourage us to make that positive impact. And whenever you find that there is a slowness from within yourselves, whenever you find that there is, for example, that you are reverting back to your original behavior, just think about these hadiths, and I'm 100% sure that they're going to motivate you to be a very successful person in the good behaviors and the good manners. As I mentioned, these hadiths are so important. The Prophet ﷺ has emphasized enormously upon the behavior. Just maybe finishing with one or two of these hadiths, inshallah ta'ala, before the end of our session today. So again, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, مَا شَيْءٌ أَثْقَلَ فِي مِيزَانِ الْعَبْدِ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ مِنْ خُلُقِ الْحَسَنِ. There is nothing actually that's heavier on the scale of the believer in the day of the hereafter more than the good behavior. In the other hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, خيركم إن من خياركم أحاسنكم أخلاقا. And I mentioned actually during my talk today that the Prophet ﷺ, he said, verily among the best of you are those who have the best characters. So and I mentioned that actually the word the best amongst you is only used by the Prophet ﷺ in contexts that really deserve our importance, that deserve, and that shows us how much the topic is important for the Prophet ﷺ. And the last hadith that I have covered actually today as well is the hadith is in which the Prophet ﷺ, he said, أكمل المؤمنين إيمانا أحسنهم خلقا, which is the most complete of believers in faith are those with best characters. So with this, I hope you are going to put some of this in practice. Allah Azza wa Jalla, what he said is that فبشر عباد الذين يستمعون القول فيتبعون أحسنه أولئك الذين هداهم الله وأولئك هم أولو الألباب. And give the glad tidings to my servants who are going to who when they listen to something, they make the best out of it. Jazakumullah khair for listening again. Thank you very much, my dear brothers.
كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا أفطر قال ذهب الظمأ وابتلت العروق وثبت الأجر إن شاء الله. The Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم would say when he would break his fast, the thirst has gone and the veins have become moist and the reward has become established, inshaAllah.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آت محمدا الوسيلة والفضيلة وابعثه مقاما محمودا الذي وعدته.
O Allah, Lord of this perfect call and everlasting prayer, grant Muhammad, peace be upon him, the wasila and the greatness, and raise him to that praised position which you have promised him.
The Iftar Show is brought to you by Mercy to Humanity. Feed a family this Ramadan for only £30 for the month. That's right, that's only £1 per day. Donate now. www.mercytohumanity.org.uk